Like many people, I nearly dismissed The Cabin in the Woods as another generic slasher film until I watched it. I mean, the premise does sound way too familiar, with a group of college friends who head to a remote cabin in the woods for a getaway, and then things go horribly wrong. But that familiarity is sort of the point of the movie. However, what sets this film apart from others is probably the climactic twist that reveals the real nature of the otherworldly horror. Yup, we're talking about the Ancient Ones, these gigantic subterranean beings capable of destroying the world if they're not appeased through ritual sacrifice. It turns out that this saga is orchestrated by an entire organization that manipulates the events and sacrifices required to safeguard the world. By the end of it all, the plan fails because 2 of the 5 friends manage to survive, and this unleashes the Ancient Ones, who seemingly begin to end the world. But there's still a whole bunch that the movie doesn't answer. We never find out where the Ancient Ones come from or why they need these sacrifices, and that's why in this video we intend to decipher as much of the mystery as we can as we dive into the origin theories around the mysterious Ancient Ones. So it's going to be a good one, and we're ready to get into it. The primordial tenants, Earth's original owners. The most grounded theory, if we can even use that term, suggests that the Ancient Ones never actually came to our world. Instead, they're an intrinsic and original part of our world, or at the very least, they were here long before the first single-celled organisms decided to divide, leading to the forms of life that we're familiar with today. They are titans of the Hadean Eon, beings of magma, stone, and subterranean pressure. Now, you might think this is a theory plucked out of thin air, but we've noticed the film gives us visual evidence supporting this. For instance, the hand that reaches the surface of the Earth isn't fleshy or scaled like a traditional biological organism. It appears to be made of glowing molten rock and hardened magma, suggesting a physiology completely alien to carbon-based life, deeply integrated with the mantle of the planet itself. This leads us to believe that these aren't random giant creatures dwelling underground, and their very formation is different and almost elemental. If you go by this theory, then the Ancient Ones are primordial, and human evolution is merely an accident. Humanity is like a parasitic infestation of mold growing on the skin of sleeping giants. The magic, or strangeness of the rituals then, isn't magic at all, but a form of deep earth acoustic or psychic dampening. The sheer terror, the specific pheromones of fear, and the spilled blood of the young act as a chemical or psychic sedative that filters down through the crust, keeping the Titans in a state of suspended animation. Basically, it's not a traditional appeasement to keep the beast away, but rather a method to keep them underground without awakening them. This also explains the sheer scale of the organization. A global threat requires a global dampening field. The Japanese branch failed, the Stockholm branch failed, and the American branch was the last line of defense. The Ancient Ones aren't localized to the soil beneath an American forest, and it's safe to assume that their immense bulk likely spans the subterranean circumference of the globe. When they awake and break free from the ground, it's global destruction and the end of the world as we know it. What if they're trans-dimensional harvesters? The cosmic horror hypothesis. If we pivot from the geological to the cosmological, we enter the realm of H.P. Lovecraft. The trans-dimensional harvester theory suggests that the Ancient Ones are an invasive species from outside our universe, entities that drifted through the blind chaos of the multiverse until they tethered themselves to Earth's reality. But the question here is, why Earth? Well, we would speculate that it's because humans provide a very specific and highly intoxicating resource, which is narrative suffering. The monsters locked in the glass cubes of the facility, the Fornicus, Lord of Bondage and Pain, the Sugar Plum Fairy, the mutants, the zombie redneck torture family, and more, well, they're the physical manifestations of human fear. The organization didn't invent these creatures, but they either captured them, bred them, or summoned them using arcane sciences. If the Ancient Ones are indeed pan-dimensional parasites, they may exist primarily as psychic entities that require a physical harbor. They feed on the emotional resonance of the 5 archetypes: the whore, transgression; the athlete, physical dominance stripped away; the scholar, intellect failing in the face of the irrational; the fool, blissful ignorance punished; and the virgin, purity corrupted or spared. This exact sequence of emotional highs and lows, cultivated meticulously by the facility's lighting, chemical manipulation, and orchestrated monster releases creates a highly refined psychic meal. The Ancient Ones came to our world because human consciousness, with its capacity for deep-rooted terror, is a delicacy not found anywhere else in the cosmos. Of course, you could also go by a simpler definition of cosmic horror, and here, the Ancient Ones could just be manifestations of Yog-Sothoth. Yep, we're now strictly in the Cthulhu mythos territory, and if this is indeed the case, then the Ancient Ones are actually all-knowing and wise, and the sacrifices are probably their twisted way of enjoying art and creativity. Secretly, we kinda love this theory, as outrageous as it might sound, because there's nothing more terrifying than Lovecraftian horror, and the Ancient Ones just fit in like a missing piece of a puzzle. Earthly mortals who became gods, or just anti-gods. For this particular point, we're again going to borrow from the Cthulhu mythos. What if the Ancient Ones were originally human mortals who were later elevated to their current godly state by Yog-Sothoth? This would explain their connection to humanity, and perhaps this is what prompts them to seek out sacrifices for their appeasement. Also, I think we're missing an obvious clue in their actions. If you consider the world as the creation of God, then the Ancient Ones are essentially anti-gods who are forces of destruction that have to be appeased for the existence of the world order. You could also view this as a case of the Ancient Ones rebelling against the Elder Gods, which gets them exiled from Earth to underneath the ground. We have to admit, it's easier to assign some sort of godhood to the Ancient Ones instead of terming them alien beings or some other form of mysterious creature. The engineered pantheon, the Atlantean blunder. I think we've pretty much covered the supernatural origins, and while it may be easy to dub the Ancient Ones as some kind of entity we don't even understand, maybe it's fair to explore the more believable origin theories as well. What if the Ancient Ones are neither primordial gods nor cosmic drifters, but the tragic result of humanity's own hubris? According to this theory, in a forgotten pre-Ice Age epoch, an advanced precursor civilization deliberately created them. Imagine a civilization with a complete mastery of both quantum physics and occult blood magic. In an attempt to create ultimate defensive weapons, or perhaps artificial gods to govern their society, they engineered the Ancient Ones. But as with all Promethean tales, the creations grew too powerful, too hungry, and they turned on their creators. Realizing their world-ending mistake, this ancient society sacrificed themselves in a massive civilization-wide ritual to force the Ancient Ones into the earth and put them to sleep. The organization then is simply the modern inheritor of a desperately maintained containment protocol that's been passed down through millennia. Sitterson and Hadley are merely bureaucratic descendants of high priests. The seemingly arbitrary rules of the ritual, such as why the virgin must suffer but can live, and why the whore must die first, are actually fragments of a highly specific, mathematically precise magical contract written by our own ancestors. What we like the most about this theory is that it beautifully explains the existence of the facility. The sheer technological marvel of the subterranean base, with its electromagnetic monster containment cubes and global satellite uplink to other ritual sites, feels less like a modern invention and more like a well-oiled ancient sacred machine. The organization doesn't even fully understand the gods they're appeasing. They only know that if the right sequence of buttons isn't pushed, the system fails and the weapons of the old world will rise to finish the job. The Gnostic creators. We are their entertainment. Let's not forget that The Cabin in the Woods is famously a meta-commentary on the horror genre itself. The film's creators, Joss Whedon and Drew Goddard, crafted the Ancient Ones as direct stand-ins for the audience. Technically, we are the capricious, cruel gods who sit in the dark, demanding to see teenagers make poor decisions and die in gruesome, inventive ways. If the movie doesn't follow the rules of these familiar tropes, we revolt and the film is destroyed at the box office. Now, how about we translate this meta-commentary into in-universe lore? This leads to the most terrifying theory of all, which is the Gnostic creator theory. In this theory, the Ancient Ones created Earth and humanity for the express purpose of entertainment. They are cosmic showrunners, and our entire reality is a terrarium built to stage their favorite plays. They didn't come to our world, but the world is simply a stage that they built. They stocked it with actors and retreated beneath the floorboards to watch the show. Going by this logic, the rituals aren't mere defensive measures, they're more like a form of television programming. The organization acts as the terrestrial producers, desperately trying to put on a show that will satisfy the demanding, easily bored gods below. I mean, we noticed how the facility staff watches the carnage on giant screens, taking bets and criticizing the performance of the victims. They're middle management trying to appease the executives. If the Ancient Ones are our creators, the specific demand for the 5 archetypes makes perfect sense. They're simply demanding a satisfying narrative arc. The Japanese branch failed because the Japanese programming, represented by the creepy ghost girl turned into a frog by pure-hearted schoolgirls, violated the horror genre conventions the Ancient Ones demand. When Dana and Marty refuse to play their parts, the season finale is ruined. The Ancient Ones, furious that the show's been cancelled, smash their TV set, which is basically the destruction of the world. The blood-soaked calculus, how humanity made contact. Regardless of which origin theory holds true, a massive gap in the lore remains, and this is the moment of first contact. We've always wondered how humanity first learned that the Ancient Ones existed at all, and how did they decipher the bizarre specific requirements of the appeasement rituals. If we look at historical mythological parallels, such as the Aztecs sacrificing to Huitzilopochtli to keep the sun moving, or the Carthaginians offering children to Baal, we see echoes of the organization's mandate. It's highly probable that first contact wasn't a singular event, but a series of localized, apocalyptic near misses throughout human history. For instance, let's consider the Bronze Age collapse. Historians attribute the sudden violent end of multiple civilizations around 1200 BCE to famine, earthquakes, and other unknown mysterious reasons. But in the lore of the Cabin in the Woods, this could easily have been a period where a ritual failed and an Ancient One momentarily stirred. The resulting seismic devastation and psychological terror would have forced the surviving priest kings to pool their knowledge. Through trial, error, and mountains of corpses, they would have discovered what worked. A simple slaughter wasn't enough, as the Ancient Ones demanded story and drama. They demanded the punishment of the transgressor, the whore, the humbling of the strong, the athlete, the confounding of the smart, the scholar, the death of the ignorant, the fool, and the torment of the pure, the virgin. Over centuries, this bloody mandate evolved from stone altars and darkened caves to the sterile, fluorescent-lit control rooms of the modern organization. The horror transitioned from religious ecstasy to bureaucratic routine. Sitterson and Hadley complain about their wives, bet on which monster will disembowel a teenager, and celebrate a successful sacrifice with tequila and pop music. We think that the nonchalance of their evil is the ultimate defense mechanism against the cosmic horror of what they actually do, because they've compartmentalized the unthinkable. But this bureaucratic detachment is precisely what leads to their downfall. By treating the rituals as a job, they underestimate the human element. They fail to realize that Marty the Fool is actually a deeply observant survivor, and that Dana the Virgin is capable of immense righteous wrath. The inevitable hand of fate. When we speculate on how the Ancient Ones came to our world, we're ultimately examining our own relationship with the unknown, the uncontrollable, and our own dark appetites for violence in media. Whether they're magma-born titans of a prehistoric Earth, interdimensional parasites feeding on fear, forgotten biological weapons, or the cruel architects of our reality, their function remains identical. They are the ultimate cosmic landlords, and the rent is paid in blood. We would say that the brilliance of The Cabin in the Woods is that it refuses to give us any clean answers. The lore is merely hinted at, whispered through the PA systems of a crumbling underground bunker, and screamed by the director with her dying breath. In the end, the origins matter little when the ground begins to split. As Dana and Marty share a final joint, watching the world fracture around them, they accept a profound, terrifying truth about a world that requires the mechanized, institutionalized torture of the young just to keep on spinning. They believe that it's a world that deserves to be smashed. The Ancient Ones, wherever they came from, are finally given the floor. The screen cuts to black, the gods claim their due, and the show, definitively, is over. I know that these theories are mere speculation because so little has actually been revealed about the true nature of the Ancient Ones, and we've waited so long for a sequel to do the explaining that we've almost given up hope, but we still never know when someone might decide to relaunch a franchise and continue the narrative. Honestly, we'd be more interested in a prequel story than anything else, especially since it seems the world ended in the first movie, but a prequel would be an amazing way to explain all the mysteries and doubts we've had so far. Let us know in the comments down below what you think the actual origin and history of the Ancient Ones is, and also don't forget to share your thoughts on the prospect of a new Cabin in the Woods movie in the future. Thanks for watching, stay safe out there, and have an amazing day. We'll see ya in the next one.